Hello and welcome to the 42nd episode of PEMpodcast, the Psychic Guide Mystery Podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Laurie, with my fabulous sister, Sandy. Hello, Sandy.
Hello.
Coming at you this post-Thanksgiving weekend. How was your Thanksgiving, sweetheart? Did you have a good one? We totally talked on Thanksgiving.
It was the usual, not enough food, too much food. There's still dessert left in my refrigerator.
How is that possible? The dessert is left in your refrigerator.
Bummer.
If I were there, I would have taken care of that for you.
Thank you.
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Yes. I had a bumpy cake. Do you know what a bumpy cake is, Sans?
You've described it to me, but please share.
It's the most delicious thing in the world. So I don't know if it's like a Michigan thing. It might be. But it's I think Sandra's came up with it. But a bumpy cake is basically chocolate cake, and there's a layer of chocolate frosting over the top, but underneath the chocolate frosting is this just delicious white icing. It's just so good. It's so yummy. It's like a clump of it. So it's the bump in the cake is the white frosting. And it's like my favorite dessert ever.
Is it always chocolate? Like it's always chocolate?
Always chocolate. It's always exactly that. So it's chocolate ice cream covering up a layer of white frosting over a very moist chocolate cake.
So it's like an adult version of a Hostess cupcake.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, but more delicious.
Okay.
Way more delicious.
Hence the adult version. Yeah.
Like I was telling Sans, I'm like, they sell like a cake that's like, like probably 4 by 4 inches, right? And they're like, bumpy cake for 2. And I'm like, liars. No one is sharing these with another person. Like, you can call it bumpy cake for 2, but it's really bumpy cake for 1 who enjoys bumpy cake.
Yeah, get in my belly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, try and leave that for the next sitting. Good luck with that. Nope, no thank you. Get in my gapping ball. So that's what I had for my dessert. And there was none of that left over. So there's been plenty of other leftovers, but not that. So deliciousness.
Oh, hilarious. I made a turkey breast.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I made this so we can have leftovers tomorrow. I got up the next day. I opened up the turkey and like there was like a quarter left. I don't know what happened after I went to bed Thanksgiving evening, but the twins must have gone to town. So
as they always do. I love when you like put in a dozen eggs in the fridge and then the next day you go to make breakfast and they're just gone. Like they're just gone, like gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt eats 4 eggs at a time.
So. Yeah. Well, they're grown boys. I think they've stopped growing, right?
I have no idea. I just know they treat my refrigerator like a dining common, and that is a problem.
Well, they're growing from the standpoint of they're just churning. They're in their 20s, so they're churning through calories. They're at that age.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway.
Oh, and then when Michael goes back to school, he packs up all of the food I bought for them, like to enjoy at my house. So bags of chips and soda and
he's claiming
beers that he brought. Like it was ridiculous. I'm like, why don't you just go shopping in my fridge? Just
that's what he's doing, honey.
I know.
I think that like you should just go to the grocery store and like, come home with like the bags, the square bags. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The recyclable ones, and just be like, okay, it's a grab bag, grab your bag and go to school. Just don't even unpack it. Just be like, boys,
just take it.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
Just take your arm along the chips aisle.
Yeah. I'll just be a vending machine and, what do you call that? Instacart. I'll be an Instacart and a vending machine.
There you go. I like it. I like it so much. Okay. So enough chatter. I hope everybody watching, listening had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Pretty mild on the news front, which I think we needed because it's been kind of a turbulent couple of weeks. But I think that we can all breathe and relax now, which is great. So it's going to be, I told you it was going to be okay, and it was, and it is. So we're just moving along. Okay, so book promotion. I'm going to start us at the beginning of the MJ Holiday Ghost Hunter Mystery Series. So MJ Holiday is a character that spun out of the 3rd Abby book. She's a ghost hunter, and she moves souls, disconnected spirits over to the other side. That's her goal. but she's basically employed at this point in her career to kind of combat the more violent negative ghosts. So she gets recruited by a doctor, handsome doctor, who recruits her to come up and dispel his inherited mansion that he inherited from his father of its disembodied spirit. And in the process, she is able to solve the murder mystery of his grandfather. This is the introduction of both MJ and Gilly. So for those of you, Kat Cooper, Gilly Gillespie, life coach mysteries, this is where Gilly gets his start. So, and Gilly is loosely based on, he's not loosely based, he's totally based on my agent, Jim McCarthy, who's been so generous over the years with one tall tale after another, because Jim, in his pre-married years, led a very fun, flamboyant, interesting, wild life. So it was great material and was very generous with every story that he would tell me. So outlandish story he would tell me. So a lot of those have found their way into the series. So anyway, so that's that. Anecdotes. I had one that was really great right before Thanksgiving. So I was reading for a client and her grandmother showed up. Her grandmother came through and was really strong. And her grandmother kept talking about Thanksgiving and how everybody was gathered for Thanksgiving. And it was my understanding, until communicating with this woman on the other side, that Thanksgiving was like our thing. Like, the souls would gather and come to our Thanksgiving. No, that's not how it works. They actually celebrate Thanksgiving on the other side. And I'm like, that's crazy, really? And they do. They celebrate Thanksgiving on the other side. So she was showing me this big feast and, who would be in attendance. It was great. And then she walks right over to a table that in my mind's eye was just like a mountain of desserts, just tier after tier after tier of like delicious scrumptiousness. And she said to me, I start here. So I told my client, I said, oh, and your grandmother wants you to know that she's going to be starting with dessert first. And she said, was this grandmother, mother? I think it was mom. No, it was mom. So it was mom. So she said that when her mother was in assisted living, that the staff at the assisted living center had called her and they were saying she won't eat her dinner. She really only just goes for dessert. And she had said, you know what? She's in her 90s. Let her have dessert. Let her have it. So she had a history of starting with dessert, which I thought was adorable. And then I read for that client's daughter, which was really interesting. I didn't connect the two until like midway through the reading. And her grandfather came through, I think on the other side of the family. I think he was from dad's side of the family, I think. And he kept showing me apples. And so apples for me are a symbol of teachers. So I'd asked her, who's a teacher? She said, my grandmother was a teacher, which I thought was really cool. And then he continued to show me apples. He kept shoving apples at me. And I'm like, what's the deal with apples? I don't know. Right. Like I'm mentally having this conversation with him. And he's like, just say apples. And I'm like, I don't want to. That sounds weird. He's like, no, say apples. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I asked her, I'm like, okay, so what's the deal with apples? Because he just keeps showing me all of these apples. And she goes, well, I was raised in an apple orchard and my grandfather lived on Apple Street. Adorable. So them's my two anecdotes for you. So, okay, let's get to Larry Rudolph.
Yes.
And the mystery of Bianca Rudolph's death.
So at the time of Bianca Rudolph's death, she and her husband, Larry, had been married for 34 years, and the couple met while Larry was in dental school and Bianca was getting a degree at the University of Pittsburgh. After marrying in the early 80s, Larry focused on building his dental practice while Bianca raised their two children, son Julian, who is now an attorney in Florida, and daughter Anna, who is also now a dentist. Over the course of their marriage, Larry's practice, Three Rivers Dental Group, founded in 2006, was renowned for patient care, including specialization in sedation dentistry, and Larry grew it to a multi-million-dollar empire with 5 offices in the Pittsburgh area. As a result of his great success, Larry spent less and less time in the office and traveled between their 2 homes in Pennsylvania and Arizona. Both skilled big game hunters, the couple frequently vacationed in Africa pursuing their passion. Larry had also served as the president of the Safari Club International, but his term ended abruptly when he was dismissed for misconduct, including supposed adultery. Larry denied the claims and sued for defamation, and with the case ultimately being settled out of court. Interestingly, the Rudolphs seemed to enjoy an open marriage, as it was no secret that Larry had maintained a long-term 18-year romantic relationship with his Three Rivers Dental Group office manager, Lori Milliron. In October of 2016, Larry and Bianca traveled to one of their favorite hunting locations, Kafue National Park in Zambia, which, as the oldest and most prestigious national park in the area of southern Africa, is a big game paradise. Over the course of their 10-day trip, the couple stayed in a 2-room cabin consisting of a bedroom and a bathroom. Their game scout, Spencer, noted the pair seemed happy and were affectionate with one another throughout the trip. On the final day of their safari, before retiring to their cabin, the couple's hunting rifles were emptied of all ammunition, as was standard protocol at the end of every day of hunting. Spencer specifically recalls witnessing Bianca clearing her Browning 12-gauge shotgun of live ammunition. The next morning, on October 11th, the Rudolphs were supposedly rushing to pack up to prepare to fly home, but then a shotgun blast shattered the morning calm. Spencer, who was 30 yards away, heard the shot and ran to the Rudolphs' cabin. Upon entry, he found 56-year-old Bianca dead on the floor, bleeding from the left side of her chest from a gunshot wound to the heart. Even though the weapon was partially contained in a soft-sided case, Spencer recognized the 12-gauge shotgun lying next to Bianca. Her husband, Larry, appeared inconsolable, sobbing, "Let me just kill myself because my wife, she has committed suicide. She has killed herself. I want to kill myself also." Larry then became so distraught, he ran to a nearby river, declaring he was going to jump in and drown himself. After Spencer calmed Larry down, the two men returned to the cabin, but now Larry was sharing a different version of the events that had led to his wife's death. According to the police in Zambia, during his 30-minute interview, Larry claimed that he was in the cabin bathroom while Bianca was packing in the bedroom. Larry told Police Commander Rostin Yanega that the gun must have accidentally fired as Bianca was packing the weapon. He said that when he heard the gunshot and a scream, he rushed to the bedroom and found Bianca lying down in a pool of blood, so he immediately tried to resuscitate his mortally wounded wife. The commander sent his investigators to the scene and confirmed that it matched Dr. Rudolph's description of the events. They believed the shotgun, found approximately 3 feet from Bianca's body, was discharged while inside its case, and noted in their report that the firearm was loaded from the previous hunting activities, and the normal safety precautions at the time of packing the firearm were not taken into consideration, causing the firearm to accidentally fire. As a result, Bianca's tragic death was deemed an accident by Zambian authorities. However, the report also noted that Larry was livid when he found out that the consular chief, a former Marine and weapons expert who responded to the scene, had inspected Bianca's body, including measuring and photographing her shotgun wounds. Within days of the incident, Larry had Bianca cremated, claiming that it was too expensive to transport her body back to the United States. Oddly, Larry didn't tell his son or daughter about their mother's death for nearly a week after the heartbreaking accident. When she finally learned about her mother's demise, Anna was shattered by the news. The two were very close, and Anna often described how her mom was like an angel. She was wholesome and kind. Once home in Pittsburgh, Larry never talked about Bianca's death and requested that his office staff not discuss the matter with coworkers or patients. Nearly 2 weeks after the tragedy, family and friends gathered in Arizona to remember Bianca at her funeral. Those that knew Bianca well described her as a very kind and caring person, and many were shocked that that there was no Catholic mass or a large gathering, and that her body had been cremated, as it went against her devout religious beliefs. Although the Zambian police service had ruled Bianca's death an accident, U.S. authorities, including the FBI, began receiving tips from Bianca's close friends that Larry may have had an ulterior motive to kill his wife. In addition to the Rudolphs frequently arguing over money, Larry had also been given an ultimatum by his long-term love, Lori Milliron. If he didn't leave Bianca and sell his dental practice, Lori would end their relationship. However, it was well known among their circle of friends that despite a net worth of over $15 million, Larry could not afford to end his marriage, and as a devout Catholic, Bianca would never divorce Larry. Adding to the suspicion, shortly after returning home from Zambia, Larry collected almost $5 million in life insurance benefits and then moved into a mansion in Paradise Valley, Arizona, with Lori Milliron. The now very public couple regularly split their time between homes in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. As a result, FBI agent Donald Peterson of the Denver Division opened a case against Larry and began gathering evidence of his potential involvement in Bianca's death. FBI and U.S. consular officials reconstructed the shooting, which revealed that it was highly unlikely that Bianca had shot herself accidentally because her rifle had been fired from 2.5 to 3 feet from her body. Further, Bianca's wound pattern, documented by the consular chief's photographs, noted that the bullet fragments covered approximately 2.5 inches, which would have been impossible if the gun muzzle had been pressed against Bianca's body, thereby indicating her death wasn't suicide. Larry's reasoning behind Bianca's cremation, that it was too expensive to ship her body back to the United States, didn't add up either. Larry was a big game trophy collector and had lots of past experiences transporting large carcasses overseas. As investigators looked into the Rudolphs' finances, they discovered that a few months prior to their trip to Africa, Larry had increased the premium on several of Bianca's life insurance policies, with Larry as the beneficiary, which all told paid out just under $4.9 million. Authorities also learned that Lori Milliron had been receiving cash payments from Larry in the years leading up to Bianca's death, and shortly after Bianca's death, Larry had provided Lori with a credit card. 2 years following his wife's death, Larry paid an unknown trash service to dump the weapon that killed Bianca, opting to get rid of it rather than keeping the rare Browning 12-gauge shotgun. In December of 2021, 5 years after Bianca's death, Larry was arrested and charged with 1 count of foreign murder and 1 count of mail fraud. Special Agent Peterson submitted that there was probable cause to believe Lawrence Rudolph murdered his wife, Bianca Rudolph, with premeditation while the two were on a hunting trip in Zambia on October 11, 2016, in such a manner that he could falsely claim the death was a result of an accident. In January of 2022, Larry entered a plea of not guilty to both charges. Much to everyone's surprise, in February, the FBI charged Lori Milliron with 7 counts of being an accessory after the fact, perjury, and obstruction of a grand jury proceeding. Like Larry, Lori pleaded not guilty to the numerous federal charges. Following a denial of the defense motion, the prosecution proceeded with their plans to try both Larry and Lori together in federal district court in Colorado Springs, Colorado. The jurisdiction was selected due to the location of the insurance company that paid Bianca's life insurance policies. The 14-day jury trial was presided over Judge William J. Martinez and commenced on July 11, 2022. Larry's attorney, David Marcus, contended that this was a matter of outrageous prosecution against a man who loved his wife of 34 years and did not kill her. Attorney Marcus then went on to vigorously argue that Bianca's death was an accident, emphasizing the summary findings from the Zambia Police Service, which found that Bianca's firearm was loaded from the previous day's hunting activities, and the normal safety precautions at the time of the packing of the firearm were not taken into consideration, which caused the weapon to accidentally fire. When Larry took the witness stand, he stated, quote, "I did not kill my wife. I could not murder my wife. I would not murder my wife." He also defended his delay to notify his children of their mother's death, claiming, "I didn't want to call my children from 8,000 miles away and tell them that their mother had died. I just wanted to hug them and hold them and grieve with them when I got home." Prosecutors Brian Fields homed in on Larry's statement, pointing out that once back in the U.S., Larry did not, in fact, immediately attend to his children, but instead traveled alone to Phoenix, where the day after he landed, he contacted the life insurance company to inquire about a payout. After collecting a little over $4.8 million from 9 different insurance policies, Larry used the money to buy a $3.5 million Phoenix home and then also purchased 2 expensive cars. Prosecutor Fields then focused on the government's case on the fact that Larry murdered his wife to be with his mistress, and that Lori Milliron knew about the murder and took steps to prevent her lover from being indicted for killing Bianca. The prosecution also presented financial records that revealed the extent of Larry's support of Lori, including the fact that Lori moved into Larry's new Phoenix residence mere weeks after Bianca's death. Coroner Daniel Maswuha testified that he observed injuries to Bianca's 7th, 8th, and 9th ribs, suggesting that the bullet from her Browning shotgun entered her left chest area from a slightly angled position above her body. Additional tests determined that the gun was shot from about a meter away, all of which conclusively ruled out the possibility of suicide and thereby challenged the defense theory that Bianca Rudolph accidentally dropped her gun as she frantically packed to make it to the airport in time for the long flight home to the United States. But the most incriminating evidence against Larry came from testimony provided by Brian Lovelace, a bartender at a Phoenix-based steakhouse, where both Larry and Lori were regular patrons. Brian testified that he overheard an explosive argument between Larry and Lori while the couple were having a drink at the steakhouse bar. The music in the background made it difficult for Brian to hear the conversation going on around him, but at the point in time in which the music stopped for a brief interlude, Brian heard Larry angrily declare to Lori, quote, "I killed my fucking wife for you," end quote. During cross-examination, Larry countered that Brian Lovelace misheard him and that what he had said to Lori was, "Now they're saying I killed my fucking wife for you." In closing statements, Larry's attorney, David Marcus, acknowledged that Larry Rudolph was not a likable guy. But he told the jury that the facts were on their side and that this isn't about whether or not you like Larry. Marcus reminded the jury that the prosecution's theories and gossip were not enough to convict a man of murder. The six-woman jury, after deliberating for 3 days on August 1st, 2022, found 67-year-old Larry Rudolph guilty of murdering his wife and of defrauding multiple life insurance companies. The same jury also found 64-year-old Lori Milliron guilty of being an accessory after the fact to murder, obstruction of justice, and 2 counts of perjury before the grand jury. The official ruling reads in part, the evidence presented at trial proved Lawrence Rudolph murdered his wife Bianca while the two were on a hunting trip in Zambia on October 11, 2016, in such a manner that he could falsely claim the death was the result of an accident. The defendant devised a scheme to defraud and obtain a total of $4,877,744.93 from 9 life insurance policies with 7 different life insurance companies, one located in Colorado. He did this by representing Bianca died as the result of an accidental discharge of a firearm where, in fact, she had been murdered. She was shot once in the heart with a 12-gauge shotgun. The evidence also proved that Lori Milliron provided false and misleading testimony to a grand jury sitting in the District of Colorado regarding cash payments made to her by Lawrence Rudolph and the nature of her relationship with Rudolph. She testified before the grand jury the reasons for the cash payments was because he was generous. It was actually because she was his girlfriend. When asked about what Rudolph told her about the fact that he was under FBI investigation, she told the grand jury that Rudolph said he was irritated by the investigation because he was probably innocent. Actually, Rudolph had told her in the spring of 2020 that he had killed his wife for her. Facing a maximum penalty of life in prison for the murder of his wife and 20 years for mail fraud, Larry Rudolph has been remanded into custody and will be sentenced on February 1st, 2023. Lori Milliron is not being held in custody, but is required to wear an ankle monitoring bracelet until her sentencing on February 8th, 2023. She is facing up to 30 years in prison. Larry Rudolph and Lori Milliron both plan to appeal their guilty verdicts. My sources for this story include the New York Times, dentist found guilty of murdering his wife on a hunting trip by April Rubin, 8/2/22. People magazine, did a dentist's own words unravel his plot to kill his wife on safari and then claim it was an accident by Christine Pelisic, 8/17/22. The U.S. Sun, life destroyed. Who is Larry Rudolph and where is he now? By Nikki Main, 9/16/22. CBS 48 Hours, wife of Pittsburgh dentist, dies from fatal gunshot on safari. Was it an accident or murder? Produced by Ruth Chenitz, 8/9/22. CBS 48 Hours, how a Denver jury determined an accident on an African safari was murder. By Jennifer Turker, 9/7/22. The Denver Gazette, dentist found guilty in Denver of murder in the death of wife while on safari. By Carolyn McKinley, 8/1/22, and the Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Colorado, federal jury convicts dentist of killing wife on African safari, 8/2/22. So, was it murder or an accident, B?
Yeah, I think we both totally agree that this was like absolutely one of the worst planned, worst played out murders that we've covered so far. It's just so absolutely ludicrous. One of the things that I want to highlight really quick is that the mail fraud charge was because of the life insurance. So in case you're like, wait, he killed his wife, what's the mail fraud for? It's for the life insurance policies that he received a check after having murdered his wife. Or several checks actually after her receiving his check. So this was, there's no doubt in my mind that he murdered her. The trip on the safari was an easy place for this to take place. I'm positive Lori was in on this. Maybe she even suggested, hey, take her on safari, and make it look like an accident, because that's fairly easy to do. But he was probably a coward and waited until their last day, thinking like, oh, he could, come up with, drum up this story about how he's taking a shit and she commits suicide while he's taking a shit. First of all, the guide is 30 feet away. Okay. There's no argument. There's no obvious sign that she's depressed. She's on safari. She's where she wants to be. And just as an aside, big game hunters, fuck off. Seriously, like, I have no love for people who kill giraffes, zebras, lions, elephants. Like, fuck all of you. But anyway, I digress. Sandy's looking at me like, no, I think it's beyond reprehensible to kill an elephant. These are sentient creatures. They are highly intelligent. I'm going off on a rant. I'm not into the whole big game bullshit. But anyway, so she's out on safari. They're frantically packing. I think that she was down on her hands and knees, probably trying to stuff stuff into a duffel or into a suitcase or something along those lines. Larry saw that the shotgun was already packed. He removes half of it, shoots her through the
chest
case. Through the case at her. And I don't think she ever saw it coming. I don't even think that her face was up towards him. I think he just blew her away. And then you made a great point about how he runs into the water to clean off any, blowback of the blood, so that if he's taking a shit, it doesn't, and then the whole where he's going to try and resuscitate his wife. Dude, there's like that was most of the heart still there? If she's shot and he knew his medical training, exactly where to shoot her in the heart, boom, right there, right? Not in the right side, but in the left side. So he runs into the water. My wife has committed suicide. Who the fuck says that? No one says that, right? They're like, the gun went off. And if he's on the shitter, how does he know that she committed suicide? There's no note, no obvious sign of depression. Everybody's like, this is just a terrible, tragic accident. And yet she drops her gun when it's half out of the case. None of this makes sense, other than it was a really poorly planned and executed murder. The whole thing with the bartender in the bar. So dialogue. I spent a lot of time thinking about dialogue and how people talk. So for him to say, now they're saying I killed my fucking wife for you. The fucking with the wife, right, goes to disparagement of her, right? What he should have said if he was being falsely accused, and what he likely would have said was, now they're fucking saying I killed my wife for you, or now they're saying I fucking killed my wife for you. That's how a person who's being wrongly accused says it. Right. So he didn't say now there. He said I killed my fucking wife for you, because the disparagement goes to the person. So I believe the bartender caught the entirety of that sentence. Easy to kind of try and come up with a different excuse, but that's not how people talk. That isn't how that phrase would be said. It just isn't. And then the whole thing about the funeral, right? That it was like a quick cremation, can't export her body back to the United States. What a terrible thing to do to his children. Like, honestly, what an absolutely horrific thing to do to his children. If it was an accident, that's an absolutely terrible thing to do to his children. And the delay of a week when he gets back to telling them, because honestly, he needed to kind of calm down and get his story straight and figure out what he was going to say, and needed the extra time because he knew that they'd be like, Dad, what the fuck? So none of that jives. None of it jives. And I had one more point, but I can't think of it. So the funeral service was like, there really wasn't a funeral service, right, Stans?
It was done in, oddly, it was done in Arizona versus in Pennsylvania. So it was like their secondary home. And I think it was rushed, so there couldn't be that many people there to ask questions or to probe as to what was going on or why it was being done with, not a large gathering. I think a lot of friends were like, why didn't you wait for everybody to be able to get together and do this? Because he just didn't want to face the questions.
Exactly. And then this whole thing about, which I find really interesting, about how he couldn't afford to divorce his wife to go hang out with Lori. Bullshit. I actually have a friend of mine who is living with her boyfriend, and he and his wife own a very successful business together, but they have both decided to separate without going through divorce because they would lose a lot. So like for the last 15 years, they've been together. And all he had to do was say, hey, Bianca, you've known about Lori for the past 15 years. I'm just going to go hang at her house from now on. So this whole, she would never give him a divorce and he couldn't afford it. Why did he have to get divorced? He didn't have to get divorced. There's no reason. Zero. There's no reason. If she wanted to file, okay, they could have talked money. And, but if she's Catholic and that's truly the reason why she would never divorce him, then it's bullshit. All of it. It's just bullshit. This guy's just full on bullshit. I'm glad he's going away for life. Truly. I really am. I think he'll lose all the appeals because I just think the evidence just is for his defense is just ridiculous. It's just comedy.
Well, it's interesting because the commander, as I was researching the article, the commander that interviewed him in Zambia, people pushed him. Why did you accept his version of the story? And he said, well, because that's what he told me.
Yeah.
Like there's that element of trust in the way in which the Zambian people operate.
They don't lie.
They don't lie. Tell me the truth. Okay, I take it for. And then the other thing is their guide, Spencer, observed Bianca and Larry being very affectionate with one another the entire time that he was with them on safari. So that, like you said, yeah. So,
but again, that goes to, if they're so affectionate with each other, what's the reason for her suicide?
Right. Exactly.
Like it just is, you can always tell really in the aftermath of what happens in the days and weeks following a suspicious death. If someone is acting so out of character, so beyond what like a normal, reasonable person would do, there's something there. There's always something there. So this whole running into the river, I want to kill myself.
Well, to the other point about, it wasn't a point blank range death. So had she fired the gun accidentally, her reach would have had to have
for sure
put on pressure on the trigger. She would have had to have been leaning on the muzzle
for sure.
And the bullet fragmentation at the impact of the wound, the 12 gauge, I guess, right. I guess the bullet kind of fragments open and goes this way. Right. So it wasn't that. It should have been a closed wound, but it had fragments, meaning that it was shot at a distance.
Right. So, exactly.
Yeah. I did not explain that well. I am really sorry.
We get it. We all get it. We know. He shot her from, and that makes sense, right? That she's on her hands and knees packing and he picks up the gun. She doesn't even take notice because everybody's, putting stuff everywhere. He takes it half out, just enough to get his finger around the trigger, right? He's already loaded it. We know that, right? When she wasn't looking or probably sleeping, or when she was on the shitter. And pulls it out just halfway, done.
Well, the fact that she screamed, right?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Like bullshit.
You don't scream if you're going to shoot yourself, or you don't scream if you're falling on the trigger, right?
Exactly.
Oh, she screamed because she saw what he was.
Yeah.
Guns in her face.
Yeah, could be. It absolutely could be. Yeah. I mean, only Larry knows, but we know.
Well, you are psychic, so you should know. I'm just saying.
I know. It was murder. That's
why we call it the psychic eye mysteries.
Not like I'm there, Sandy.
Yeah, psychic eye mysteries. You're the psychic. You're supposed to know.
I do.
I'm just clarifying. That's all.
Whatever.
Okay. So we are going to be creating a whole new podcast. It's called PEM in 10. And it's basically cases that don't require a lot of research or don't have a lot of information surrounding them. And we figured we could get through them in 10. There'll be no chatter for those of you that don't like the chatter. We'll just get straight to the case, and Victoria will offer her insights.
I don't like the chatter. Just don't tune in ever. Just go away. Go find someone else who's just, the facts are.
Okay.
We are the
so
chatter.
Anyway, that is PEM in 10. And the next two that we do will be very current. One of which is a fan request. So if you see a different title on our stream, PEM in 10, that is our 10-minute mystery solving
just need a little
podcast.
fix. That's what it is. A little fix of us. A little sugar. Just a little sugar from us. You'll get it. 10 minutes. 10-minute boost to your day.
Okay. Don't complain if it ends up being 12 minutes because I can't read fast enough. So I'm just saying.
No, we'll just end it. I'll just end the meeting. Just end. Just bye. No insight. Nothing. Just middle of a sentence. Cut it off. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Anyway, thank you very much. And scene.
Sandy and I do that a lot. And scene. All right. Well, honey, thank you again. That was an extensively researched, really well written case. Thank you. Easy conclusion. I think, everybody who was listening to it was probably like, what? He did what? Like, big doses.
He got away with it for 5 years. He got away with it. He got his payoff. And for 5 years, he didn't face charges. So
the rest of his life will be beyond bars. So good. Crime doesn't pay.
No, it does not.
Usually. Sometimes it does, unfortunately. Oh, anyway. All right. Well, I love you. It was good to see your face.
Thank you.
Week.
Love you too.
You're welcome. And guys, we'll see you again soon. Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.